My name is Liam. When I was 5 years old, my parents died in a fire, and everything in my life changed. That night, I lost more than just my home. I lost love, care, and the warm hugs that kept me safe. After the funeral, I went to live with my uncle. He didn't really want me, but he said he had no choice. He already had 3 sons, and I was just one more mouth to feed. They gave me the attic. It was dark, cold, and had no window or heater. There was only an old, thin mattress. Every night, the stairs made noise. The wind came through the walls, and I cried myself to sleep. My cousins had warm beds, toys, jackets, and even desserts. I had old clothes, silence, and no one to talk to. They told me I didn't belong there. I wasn't real family. I tried to help with housework so they might like me, but they laughed when I cleaned. They made fun of my clothes, hid my shoes, and once locked me out when I came home late from school. No one asked if I had eaten or had homework. They just wanted me to stay out of the way. I stayed quiet and small. Books became my best friends. I read anything I could find. Old newspapers, torn books, even science magazines from the trash. I didn't have toys, but I had a big curiosity. I dreamed of being a doctor, someone who helps people get better. At school, I sat in the front row, raised my hand, answered questions, and smiled when teachers noticed me. The other kids had new shoes and lunchboxes. I had bread wrapped in paper, but I never complained. One winter, I got sick and stayed in bed alone for 3 days. No one brought me food or checked on me. I got better on my own, using old blankets and remembering the stories my mum used to tell me. I remembered her laugh, her voice, and how she said I was brave, even when we had very little. That memory gave me strength to keep going. When I was 12, I made a science project about the human heart using cardboard and won my first science fair. No one from my family came to see it, but my teacher cried and said, "You are going to change the world." I remembered those words because no one else ever said nice things to me. My cousins laughed, but I kept building, learning, and dreaming. At 14, I got a small job at the library on weekends. I just wanted to be close to books. I read about medicine, diseases, and how people healed. The librarian, Mrs. Green, noticed me and started saving old medical books for me. I read them at night with a flashlight under my blanket, my heart full of hope. Every morning, I got up early, folded my blanket, cleaned the attic, and walked to school. I carried my books in a plastic bag and smiled at people, even when it rained or I was sick. I never missed a class. I sat in front, took notes, and asked questions, even if others laughed. My cousins stopped caring about school. They stayed out late and got into fights. They came home angry, called me names, and blamed the world. My uncle did nothing about them, but yelled at me when things went wrong. He never praised me, never asked about my dreams, just told me to wash more dishes. But I kept going. I studied every night, even when I was tired or sad. Mrs. Green helped me speak better, gave me more books, and told me about real doctors. She said I had something special, a kind heart, and I should protect it. Her words made me stronger. In high school, I won medals, joined science clubs, and wrote papers. I hung my awards on the attic wall. No one downstairs said a word. I applied to a summer program at a hospital and got accepted. It was my first time in a real medical place. I cleaned floors, brought coffee, and helped nurses without complaining. The head doctor watched me and later gave me books and lessons. He said, "Medicine is not just about brains. It's about care and understanding pain." I wrote that down and read it every night. At 17, I got a full scholarship to a top university. I held the letter tight, showed it to my uncle, but he just said, "Doctors need money. We don't have that, so don't dream." I smiled, went to my room, and packed my bag with quiet joy. Mrs. Green drove me to the city, helped me move in, and hugged me like a mother. She said, "Go change the world, Liam. Show them what real strength looks like." I held her words close because I knew life would still be hard. But I was ready. In college, I studied hard, worked on weekends, and helped at clinics. I met many people with different lives. I listened to their stories and learned from them. I never forgot the attic, never forgot the pain, the silence, and the cold nights. My cousins dropped out of school, got into trouble, and blamed others. I didn't feel better than them. I just stayed quiet and followed my path. At 22, I finished college with honors. I stood on stage in front of strangers who clapped. My uncle didn't come, but Mrs. Green did, and she cried with joy. I shook with pride and thought of my parents. I hoped they were proud too. The little boy from the attic was now a doctor. Not because of luck, but because he never gave up. And this was just the start of something even greater, something full of light. My first days in the hospital were hard. I felt scared and had many questions, but I didn't ask anyone. The other students were brave. They talked fast and knew what to do. I stayed quiet and watched them. I learned from how they moved and acted. I wrote everything in my notebook, even how nurses smiled to make patients feel better. The doctors showed us how to listen and speak at the right time. They showed how to move our hands, soft but strong, never cold. I practiced for hours on plastic arms. I spoke in the mirror at night, pretending to talk to real patients. One day, the patient called my name. His voice was soft, but his eyes were kind. He asked me to sit and told me about his life. He said no one visited him anymore. So I stayed longer. I talked and listened. I made sure he didn't feel alone. A nurse saw me do that. She smiled and said, "Thanks." I didn't know why, but it made me feel warm inside. It reminded me of the days when one kind word could help me feel better. I understood now. Being a doctor wasn't just healing. It was being kind. Later, I started helping lead student rounds. I helped with notes and explained things. Some students asked, "How are you so good?" I just smiled and said, "I like to learn and help." But deep inside, I knew it was my past pain that made me strong. After a year, I got a small award. It was for caring about patients. It was not big, but it felt special. The patients said I made them feel safe and seen. That night, I went to my room and cried. I held the paper like gold. Outside, the world moved fast. Parties, big plans, and dreams everywhere. But I stayed focused. I worked in the emergency room, where time moves fast. I saw real pain every day. It taught me more than books ever did. Sometimes, I walked home late. I thought about my old life and my cousins. They laughed at me before. Now they sent messages asking for help. I helped when I could, but I never forgot the attic and how far I had come. Years passed. I finished med school. I was top of my class. People now called me Dr. Liam. Some wanted to learn from me, but I didn't change. I still cleaned my room. I still said thank you. I knew being kind was real strength. My first surgery was special. My hands shook, but my eyes were calm. I thought of my mum. She once cleaned floors to feed me. I wished she could see me. She said I would be great. Now I was proving her right. At a health event, I gave a talk. I told my story. After, people came to thank me. One woman cried. She said her son now wanted to go back to school. I felt something deep inside. My pain had turned into something good. I started helping in small towns. I opened clinics and trained students. I gave free care to poor families. The children there reminded me of me. Quiet, scared, and full of dreams. I told them, don't stop. Your pain will give you strength one day. One night, as I locked the clinic, a boy ran to me. He gave me a small note. It said, "Thank you for saving my sister. I want to be like you." I kept that note in my coat, next to my mum's photo and my first badge. At that moment, I knew I wasn't just a doctor. I had become hope. Later, I met a woman at the hospital. Her name was Elsie. She was quiet but strong. She worked night shifts as a nurse. One evening, we had coffee and shared our life stories. She didn't care about awards. She cared about people, just like me. Weeks passed. She became a special part of my life. We laughed, read books, and made cheap meals. One Sunday, she visited my clinic. She played with the kids all day. That night, I knew she was the one, not because of beauty, but because of her heart. I asked her to marry me behind the clinic in the garden. The flowers were planted by the children. She cried and said yes. We had a small wedding in spring. No gold, no big party. Just hugs, smiles, and sunshine. Years went by. Elsie and I worked hard, but we were happy. We adopted 2 little girls. They were orphans like me. They had soft hands and quiet eyes. I saw myself in them. I promised to be the dad I never had. Now, when I walk in the clinic, I see colors. I hear kids laughing. I feel peace. Patients read while waiting. Kids draw on the floor. The doctors there are kind, not just smart, but warm. At night, Elsie holds my hand. We talk about small things and big dreams. She often says she's proud of me. I say I'm proud of the journey. From attic to home. From sadness to joy. From fear to faith. I didn't just become a doctor. I became a man with love and quiet power. Now, when the sun rises, I feel full inside. And each morning, I look up and whisper, "I made it, Mama." And I hope she hears me.